Dear Media original podcast.
So when I was thinking about equality, I wanted to make sure that everyone had access to food specifically, because that is what I've had access to my whole life. That is what I've kind of like built my life around, and my family has been built around. And it's kind of like the lens that I've like lived my life through for a really long time.
I'm Michael Platt. The titles that have meaning to me are brother, son, cook or chef, and creative.
It feels fitting to have the last episode of this season be about the future and the hope and imagination that this generation has for themselves and our country. At just 8 years old, Michael Platt faced a health crisis that altered the course of his life. It also introduced him to a passion for baking and caring for others, something he inherited from his loving and supportive family. As I listen to this story, I think of possibility and what it takes to support a thriving, whole self. Michael's mother, Danita, does the hard work to protect his imagination and kindness, creating a space for him to be resilient and hopeful in a system that is quick to erase and marginalize Black boys. His mother is the antidote to that system. Michael is now a teenager, and even with all that he's accomplished, he is just beginning. He's only 17. I'm your host, Tracy Ellis Ross, and this is I Am America, where we meet people who are redefining their own identity, the idea of community, and the possibility of our country. These stories are beautiful, heavy, and light, and they allow us to reimagine and reframe what we know about this country. Today's story is produced by Nicole Hill, and this is Michael Platt.
Michael Platt is a very busy 17-year-old high school senior. When he's not teaching baking courses, giving interviews about his company, writing cookbooks, or reviewing menus, he's in his family's kitchen in Bowie, Maryland, prepping orders.
So I have like muffins to make and like sticky buns and stuff like that. So that's all of this. I have like a big old bag of pecans right here.
Michael started on the path to becoming a baker when he was around 8 years old. Back then, he was a quiet, active kid running around his house, flipping over furniture with his brother Gabriel, and driving his parents, Danita and DeMario, a little crazy. So they enrolled Michael in gymnastics and Gabriel in swim lessons. And when the boys weren't at practice or school or riding their bikes or playing with their friends, they were in the kitchen, helping their mom prepare meals for the family and friends that were always stopping by. While they ate, Michael listened to the adults tell stories, like the one about what Danita did when she got her first apartment.
I would call my friends over and say, hey, this Saturday I'm making soup and biscuits. Do y'all want to help? And everyone would come over, help me make soup and biscuits. I got like a canning pot, and my mother would make this beef stew that my grandmother made. And it's beef stew and tomatoes and canned vegetables, and it's really delicious. And then we'd pack it all up and take it to D.C. to people who were experiencing homelessness in the parks in D.C. and hand that out because it was just so cold.
My aunts would come over and we would talk about like my mom giving away like soup and biscuits and stuff like that. And yeah, I remember like driving around DC and we would like pass the parks that she used to give out food in, and she would like tell us about like what she would do there and just stuff like that. Just like actually like living in like the shadow of everything that already happened.
His mom and aunts weren't trying to teach Michael about giving back when they told these stories in front of him, or when they took him along to make deliveries at their local food pantry, or invited him to help out while they assembled care packages for college kids at their church. They were just doing what they'd grown up doing, and living out their belief that your community is an extension of your family and should be cared for that way.
It was our family's thing, so I wasn't really like blown away by it, but I knew that it wasn't super normal, but it was still like something that was normal for me.
When Michael is in the 4th grade, he starts having experiences that seem kind of strange.
I remember I was like getting up to answer a question, and the teacher, he was like telling me to like look at the board and like answer the question. And I was just saying, because I had like this big bright light like floating around and I had to follow it. So I was like, I can't see the board. And he was like, what do you mean you can't see the board? And it was like that for like 10 seconds. It was really weird. But then I didn't tell anyone. I just thought it was like just a normal thing. Like, oh, you know. So I just sat back down. I answered the question, sat back down, and like went with the rest of the day.
Teachers were sending home notes and calling, sending us emails about Michael not paying attention, about his forgetfulness, not fulfilling his potential. He was never feisty or disrespectful or anything like that. But there was just this constant feedback that we were getting that he wasn't paying attention and he wasn't applying himself, and he was just so forgetful.
I would be like in the car and I'd be looking out the window, and then all of a sudden I'm in a completely different place and I'm like, how did I get here?
Demario and I were just trying to figure out what was going on. And I think our conversation with Michael really was just try to pay attention. Just try to, to pay attention, to focus.
Listening to his parents give advice on paying attention is so confusing for Michael. He's wondering how everyone else is managing seeing lights and losing time and having all these strange things happen to them while also staying perfectly present.
Like, I don't really know what you're talking about. I'm just like, this is like, how is that like so easy for you like to focus?
Then that summer, his parents woke up and found Michael seizing in his bed. They rushed him to the hospital where doctors diagnosed him with epilepsy. Epilepsy is a neurological disorder. It's caused by sudden changes in electrical activity in the brain. It affects a person's sense of smell and sight and memory. Doctors ask if Michael has ever suddenly lost track of how much time has passed or seen strange lights. They explain that this is because of his epilepsy, and those were different kinds of seizures.
So for like an absent seizure, that would affect the part of the brain that controls my memory. So I would kind of like space out. So I basically just become like unresponsive for a certain amount of time. For me, it's like 1 second, but for other people, it's like 10 seconds, 30 seconds. For them, it's definitely really weird, but for me, it was just like normal.
Doctors explained to Michael and his parents that while there is no cure for epilepsy, they can reduce Michael's seizures with medication and by limiting his exposure to certain environments and activities that might cause a seizure. Activities like swimming, gymnastics, and even riding his bike.
He's going from the kid who takes no medication because he doesn't need to the kid who's taking medication twice a day, several pills twice a day. And the medication's not working, and, he feels weird on the medication, all of those changes. But our community, our family, our friends just really, really rallied around us and helped Michael and helped us to feel like, we can get through this, and we're going to make this very strange new normal. We're going to make it feel as okay as we can.
So Michael is having to stay home a lot more than he ever has before. He's filling his time with tons of YouTube, and that's when a certain kind of video catches his eye and inspires him to go to his mom with a question.
Michael had been asking me to bake, and I was just like very much not wanting to do that.
I feel like I'd already been baking, but it was also just kind of like one of the many lists of things that I was already doing. So it was like gymnastics and riding my bike and like all the other things that took up my day, and then baking on that list. But after all that stuff went away, I still could bake, so I just kind of leaned into that.
Danita was a home economics teacher, and while she enjoyed teaching adults how to cook in her classes, she wasn't all that thrilled about the idea of having to continue those lessons at home with her 8-year-old son. Michael sat his mom down to ask her about those early days when he was first developing a curiosity about the kitchen.
So I feel like I'd always been like watching videos and like learning about baking, like on YouTube and stuff like that. Well, not really learning, but just like looking at it and being interested in it. So what did you think when I like first asked you to start baking?
I thought that I did not want flour, and all I could see was like cracked eggs on the floor, flour all over the kitchen, sugar everywhere. And I was like, if he's serious about it, he'll keep bugging me about it. But if he's not, then he won't. So I was trying to give you the slip.
But Michael does not take no for an answer. When his mom won't budge, he decides to ask his grandma, Sarah, Danita's mom.
I feel like everybody in our family, at least every like grandkid in our family, probably has a memory of being able to bake with you. But like, why did you allow us to like come in there and bake with you?
Michael, the truth of the matter is, there's always been a kid in the kitchen.
After the break, Michael and his grandma bake a cake. I want to take a moment to talk about NetSuite. If your business earns millions or tens of millions of revenue, stop what you're doing and take a listen, because NetSuite by Oracle has just rolled out their best offer ever. NetSuite gives you the visibility and control you need to make better decisions faster. And for the first time in NetSuite's 22 years as the #1 cloud financial system, you can now defer payments of a full NetSuite implementation for 6 months. That means no payment and no interest for 6 months. That's half the year. And you can take advantage of this special financial offer today. NetSuite is #1 because they give your business everything you need in real time and all in one place to reduce manual processes, boost your efficiency, build forecasts, and increase productivity across every department. Having all of your information in one place can help a business run so much faster and more smoothly, and NetSuite knows that. That's why they want to help your business with this unprecedented offer. 33,000 companies have already upgraded to NetSuite, gaining visibility and control over their financials, inventory, HR, e-commerce, and much more. If you've been sizing NetSuite up to make the switch, then you know this deal is unprecedented. No interest, no payments. Take advantage of this special financing offer at netsuite.com/IamAmerica. netsuite.com/IamAmerica to get the visibility and control you need to weather any storm. netsuite.com/IamAmerica. Baking with Grandma is kind of a rite of passage in their family.
I know your cousins have told you you weren't the first one to bake a cake. They let you know that. My own kids, we did the chocolate chip, the butterscotch or whatever. We always did the cookies at Christmas time.
Michael wants to bake something really cool like what he'd seen on YouTube, but his grandma had other plans.
And I know you make a point of letting folk know that it was a store-bought cake, but the only way to do a cake with grandkids and for them to be successful at it is to have a store-bought box that tells you step by step how to do it, because then it is your cake. So that's why it was fine to have you all in there. It was fine to have you grease your own pans, dust your own flour. It was fine to have you do that because that was a learning experience for you, and it helped me. It was something I didn't have to do because you all were happy to do it. And with you, I think that your desire lasts a little longer than the desires of the other kids. They were happy to do it the first time, and that was finished. But you put more effort into it, and I could see that you really enjoyed what it was you did. You enjoyed swirling the icing afterwards and looking at the finished product and knowing it was your product.
Up till then, I had just been helping out my family members cook, but I wasn't really cooking by myself. I didn't have my own control in the kitchen. And my grandmother kind of let me take lead. I got to ice the cake by myself. I got to choose what icing I wanted, different things like that. And also, I love science, so just being able to put together cooking, which I've been doing my whole life, and science, which I've been interested in from school, was definitely really fun.
He wants to keep baking, but not from a box. He wants to create something of his own, something from scratch. So he goes back to his mom and he asks her again. And seeing how much fun he'd had with his grandma, Danita can't help but say yes.
He wants to bake everything. So we start with cakes, cupcakes, cookies, pies, pie crust, things I had never made before, like lemon curd.
It was a long, slow process that helped me remember because, of course, I'm baking. I have to remember recipes. Just baking a lot kind of forced me to remember. I wasn't really doing it on purpose. I have all my recipes written down, but over time, I didn't have to look at it. I would read the first thing in the recipe and then I would know everything else after that. So just over time, it helped with my memory, and it was also in a way that I really enjoyed doing.
I don't think we knew what was happening, but we did look up and realize he preheated the oven without having to be told. And he set the timer. He burned that last batch because he was, off someplace. But that only happened once or twice. I don't have any science for this, but there was something about him putting all of his focus into what was right in front of him, leveling that flour perfectly, sifting it perfectly, pouring that milk to exactly 1 cup. That level of focus, I just firmly believed it helped to heal a part of his brain that was being damaged through epilepsy. the part that helps him to be in the moment and hold on to it.
Michael is baking more and more, and he's excited about it, but he does worry a little bit about what others might think. Here he is talking to his dad, Demario, about it.
Have anybody ever talked to you about it's weird for, a young boy to be baking?
I feel like no one really ever did that to me. I kind of feel like maybe people thought it but I've always, after I thought maybe people were thinking that, then I was realizing, man, I'm probably in my own head.
But what made you get in your own head? Did you ever feel like yourself? Like, why am I doing this? Or, what made you think that you were probably getting into your own head about it?
I just feel like a boy baking, it's not something that you probably would think about, like stereotypically, something that I'd be doing. But after like thinking about like, there are a bunch of guys who bake, there are a bunch of like, guys who are in like the food industry, who are like really popular in the food industry. After like thinking about that, I was like, oh yeah, I'm overthinking it. Yeah.
His dad and the rest of his family encouraged Michael to keep pursuing his new passion. And once he gets over his initial fears, Michael doesn't have a problem letting word spread about his baking skills.
So he's baking for family. And then because he's baking so much, we have to start then taking things to church and taking things to people's house. Hey, you guys want a cake? You guys want a pie? That kind of thing. We would literally wake up to ingredients on the front steps. We would wake up and there would be people have dropped off. Oh, I saw some Pam spray. It was on sale, so I dropped it by the house.
When he and his mom aren't baking together at home, Michael is exploring another fascination that he's actually had for a while, back at his grandma's house.
So yeah, I know you have a poster of a newspaper that has the I Have a Dream speech on it. So like, what's the story behind that?
Oh, that's going so far back, Michael. After the March on Washington, back in 1963, everybody got those posters, and I framed mine. That was just such a great time in the life of African Americans. That was a time when most of us of that era had those posters, and I decided to hang mine, to frame it, and to hang it in the bathroom, because the bathroom is a place where everybody goes.
What do you remember about the actual day that the March on Washington happened? How'd you feel about it?
I was actually in Virginia, headed for my first teaching job as a social studies teacher, high school. I was not in Washington, D.C., so I didn't go to the march. But I knew it was happening. Everybody knew it was happening. And to the degree we could all get on somebody's TV, we looked at it on TV and we shared it with neighbors and friends. Churches opened their doors so that people could come and congregate there. So it was just a great experience for everyone. And it was good to see that this was a time when blacks and whites were marching together, were being a part of this great event. It was just an amazing time. Michael, you spend an inordinate amount of time in the bathroom downstairs. And I didn't realize that you were sitting in there reading that poster, and you've done it many, many times. What was your interest in that poster?
When I started learning about the March on Washington from like maybe kindergarten, when I was like 5 or 6, and then like putting 2 and 2 together, like, oh, this is the I Have a Dream speech that I learned about in school, and this is the same like poster that my grandmother has in her bathroom. It kind of just puts everything in perspective. Just being able to see like, oh, my grandmother was there, and just kind of like see how it's impacted my life and impacted like all the people in my family's life, especially like yours and just everyone. Just like the way that it's impacted, I feel like every black person's life, all the laws that were made, things like that, segregation ending, because I know like segregation ended right after my grandmother graduated college. So just being able to see like the physical document of the real like point in time where all these things changed, and then actually have a physical document that, marks that point in time.
I just assumed that that's what was happening, that you were learning more as you read it more.
This history interested and inspired Michael and made him consider the ways that he could have an impact on others through his baking. Around the time that he's 11, he comes up with an idea and once again enlists his family to help make it happen. A goal I made for myself this year was to experiment more with my look, starting with my accessories. So I was already in the market for a new pair of eyeglasses when I discovered Pair Eyewear. During my annual eye checkup, I told my doctor that at the end of the day, I was feeling so tired I could hardly keep my eyes open. She told me about eye fatigue and that all my time on computers and screens could be contributing to my eyes feeling exhausted at the end of the day. So I decided to look for some blue light glasses on Pair Eyewear's website, and I found these lovely tortoiseshell ones that I am wearing right now. They had so many different styles, and their website was really easy to use. They have magnetic top frames that start at only $25. At that price, you can really build a collection that's unique to you and your style. And their budget-friendly base frames start at just $60, including prescription. Another thing I love about Pair is that they know vision is essential. So for every pair you buy, Pair provides glasses to a child in need. So get glasses that stay as fresh as your unique style with Pair. Go to paireyewear.com/America for 15% off your first purchase. That's Pair, P-A-I-R, eyewear.com/America.
Hi, I'm Tracy Ellis Ross. It was a long road to understanding and loving my natural hair. I created Pattern Beauty for all of us to unleash our best curls in our own bathrooms. From wash day to styling and everything in between, Pattern promises to keep your curls, coils, and tight textures juicy and joyful. Give us a try and get 15% off now with the code podcast15 on patternbeauty.com. Here's to loving our hair.
So yeah, I kind of just like after I knew that I liked baking, after I knew that I was good at it, after I shared it with my family, I decided that I wanted to start a business.
I had walked in from work and turned the corner, and he says, "Oh, Mom, look, I made the logo for my business," and I started working on the website. He had named it
Michael's Desserts.
Chosen the colors and everything. There was no discussion with me about it.
I feel like I had been talking to my mom, or in my head, I had been talking to my mom about it, but that was kind of just when she decided to give in. Now I think about it, I feel like I just kind of thought that my family was on board and they were just going to help me.
I came home and Danita was like, "Oh, you want to see Michael's logo?" So I had an interesting moment, right? I was like, wow. And at the same time, awe, because I was like, dang, I wanted to be a part of that process. But the fact that he took the initiative and started that process, I was very proud of him for doing that. So that's when I knew he was serious.
So, we jumped in.
Michael becomes the 11-year-old CEO of Michael's Desserts. He's excited about starting a business, but he doesn't just want to sell cupcakes. He wants to impact people's lives. He just isn't sure how a company does that.
We happened to give him a pair of Tom's shoes for Christmas. We loved, obviously, the mission of one for one. And they were Michael has a very distinct sense of style, and so they were right up his alley. And when he opened the box, there was a card in there that basically said, "As you stand here holding these shoes, there's another child on the other side of the world who is holding a pair of shoes because of these shoes that you have."
This card gave Michael a model for how a business could help people. And remembering the stories he'd grown up hearing about his mother giving away soup in the park gave him an idea of who he could help. Michael tells his family that for every cupcake Michael's Dessert sells, he also wants to give one away to a person experiencing homelessness.
My whole family has been feeding people, and that was just kind of the first thing that I thought of, because I've been learning about inequity and equality, and I felt like food was something that really connected with me. So when I was thinking about equality, I wanted to make sure that everyone had access to food specifically, because that is what I've had access to my whole life.
Michael and his parents and his community are all on board, and everyone is so happy for him. But first things first, he's got to make a sale. Danita had plans to attend an event in their hometown called Community Day. This is where vendors set up tables and sold locally made items. Danita reserved a table to sell her body creams, and she invites Michael to join her to sell his sweets. He enthusiastically agrees, and then puts his family to work baking Rice Krispies treats and chocolate chip cookies and preparing for his company's debut.
What were your highlights for the day, Michael?
I feel like I remember everything. Like I remember like waking up and like being all nervous. I remember like we had like the red truck at that time, so we put all the stuff in like the bed of the truck. And we had Taco Bell for breakfast because we got there late. I remember my shirt was too small for that. We like ironed like on the logo of the shirt, and it was like this random t-shirt that I found. It was way too small, so it was cold outside. I was cold. So yeah, we did all that.
Michael, Danita, Demario, and Michael's older brother Gabriel finished their Taco Bell and then set up their table.
So my husband works in sales, so he's coaching Michael on how to sell his products.
I remember the first person who ever bought anything from Michael's Desserts. Who's like this guy. He bought we had chocolate chip cookies, and he was the first person who ever bought anything.
Gabriel is doing all the transactions for everybody, making sure people have their change. They're swiping their cards.
And it's going well. People keep stopping by their table and leaving with Michael's desserts. Towards the end of the day, they still had more to sell, so his parents suggest that Michael and Gabriel take what they had left, put it on a cart, and walk around the event to try to sell out. Michael is nervous about this, and Gabriel is too, but he steps up and encourages people to try his little brother's cupcakes.
So, like, I kind of think of myself less as, like, the salesman, but more as, like, the voice, because, like, I knew that, Michael's introverted. This is his first, like, thing. And when mommy told us to, like, go walk around, I kind of, like, dreading that. I think we both were dreading that. But honestly, I don't remember what I said. I think I was like, hey, do you want a cupcake? Like, these are good. You should probably get one. Obviously, like, we shared moments. I was like, yeah, okay, you need to talk now. Like, I can't be doing this for every person. It wasn't like we're always talking to adults. But I think, like, with this thing, it was different because, like, we had to say, can you use your money to buy this thing that we made? So it's kind of different.
Yeah, same with me. It was like, ask people to like sell things, especially toward the end of the day when people had already been there all day, and they was like, oh, can you buy like one more thing? That was kind of something that, was a little bit weird. But yeah, especially like going to people who are selling things, like, hey, can you use the money that you got to sell your thing to buy something for me? So that was definitely something also kind of weird.
But they do it. They sell out.
I had the feeling of, as an introvert, I would not want to be running around with a cart trying to get people to sell to buy my goods. But then also as a mom, I'm thinking, gosh, I'm so proud of him and his brother for going out here and doing this, and just the energy of kids to be able to go around and say, hey, don't you want to buy one of these? I know you do. Yeah, so that was very exciting.
It felt very affirmative to see us collaborating and enjoying that collaboration and pursuing an idea and actually seeing my family do it. That's the highlight, just seeing us actually collaborate and to actually do it.
After a successful launch event, Michael bakes another batch of desserts, and then he asks his mom if she'll take him to the park where she used to give away soup. They head there together and hand out his cupcakes.
I just really love feeding people, even if they can't afford it, even if they haven't had this thing in their entire life. I just love being able to give people food, just something that I'm proud of. So it was something that kind of like just felt natural.
Word gets out about Michael's Desserts and the mission of the organization, and his story takes off. The Washington Post covers him, and from there he gets invited on talk shows and baking competitions. He's asked to teach classes on baking and even gets to give talks to other young boys about how baking helped him. He continues to give back and raise awareness for causes that are working to have a positive impact on the world, including organizations dedicated to fighting hunger and those working to find a cure for epilepsy. He's 17 now and very much looking forward to what the future holds.
Well, I'm going into my senior year, so I'm really excited for all of that. I want to go to culinary school, so I'm excited to look at culinary schools and visit them and things like that. I'm excited to start, learning new things and cooking.
Michael is also looking forward to celebrating the food and cooking and baking traditions and stories and styles that he and the rest of his family have come to cherish.
I feel like I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of like my culture. And I feel like one of the things that I'd like to do, especially in my career or just across the board, is be someone who like it's okay to be Black. You don't especially when it comes to cooking. I feel like a lot of people, when they make like African-American food, it'll be like African-American plus French, African-American plus Italian. But African-American food can be fancy and done up and still be completely and 100% African American, when I feel like that's something that I want to be, or that like to continue to use like that sort of process throughout my life.
Michael's inherent imagination is beautiful, and thankfully his mother nourished it. His pride and love of his Blackness is refreshing, and thankfully his family cultivated it. His agency over his ideas, dreams, and ambitions is what we hope for all children. His family and community hold Michael lovingly, not as a problem to be solved or a danger to society. It's remarkable what that perspective offers a child. His identity is grounded in the work of the generations that preceded him. His understanding of the world is that people take care of one another and people support each other's dreams. Generosity is the inheritance of his family. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Michael is just 17, and I can't wait to hear more about this young man as he continues on his path. I also want to take this opportunity to thank you, listener, for hearing these stories and meeting all of these people. I have found so much joy in being able to share this collection. It was my intention to create space for these individuals to share their own stories in their own voices. Stories that allow us to reframe an American identity as one that is full of color, culture, and community. This is the way I experience our country. I am so grateful for the team that built these stories with me, led by our magnificent showrunner, Nicole Hill, and the head of my production company, Joy Mill, Adriana Ambrose. The connection points we discovered together as we were writing only furthered our sense of belonging as we framed these stories. As for me, I have fallen in love time and time again with each of our guests. I am honored and deeply grateful for their willingness to be open, to share their lived experiences, and to do so with joy and light. This is the version of our country that we don't hear enough of. We don't know when or what part of our stories will heal another person, when the sharing of experiences will offer courage or change how another person sees the world. I leave you with one last question. How are you honoring your own story? I'm Tracy Ellis Ross, and I hope you enjoyed meeting Michael Platt and all of our guests of this first season of I Am America as much as I did.
I Am America is a co-production of Dear Media and Joy Mill Entertainment. Executive producer, creator, and co-writer is Tracy Ellis Ross. Executive producer, showrunner, and writer is me, Nicole Hill. Executive producer and co-writer is Adriana Ambrose on behalf of Joy Mill Entertainment. Managing producer is Rosalie Atkinson on behalf of Dear Media. Sound design and engineering by Mitra Kaboli. Our theme song, Strum, is composed by Jesse Montgomery. Story editing by Martina Abrams-Ilunga. Fact-checking and reporting by Siona Petros. Production assistance by Daniel Gonzalez. Executive producers are Brian Dobbins on behalf of Artists First, Jeff Berman and Brett Boutier on behalf of Magnet Companies, and Jocelyn Falk, Paige Port, and Michael Bostic on behalf of Dear Media.